the black dog. When you get into trucking, you start to learn all the lingo. Things like 10-4, copy, the usual BS that comes with any job. The one important part, possibly the most critical, was the black dog. We were all told, if you see the black dog, you need to pull over and get some sleep. Sounds simple, right? I chucked it all up to being a hallucination from road fatigue. I used to drive all over the country before I got my commercial license. I was used to long trips, crappy coffee, and endless miles in silence and almost complete darkness. The instructors really insisted that we pay attention to how we feel, and if the black dog darts across the road, to find the nearest place to park. Heck, one even said to take an off-ramp. Off-ramps for brakes are a huge no-no for the company. Too much risk with the cargo. Now, I know the black dog is just a hallucination, and in some cases, just a story from the old-timers to scare us new guys. But for some reason, this instructor seemed to be pretty concerned about my attitude towards it. I wish I had listened. I was doing a grocery DC delivery in the middle of nowhere in Missouri. MO is known to have nowhere to park at outside of major cities, so I did the smart thing and booked a spot at the Petro in Joplin. It's a big place, plenty of spots, but I reserved one anyway because who the heck knows when I would get there. The DC was about 4 hours out from it, and dispatch didn't seem to care. I couldn't check in until 5. That's when the madness of receiving starts. I got there at about 4:30 p.m. and hit the staging area to wait. We began to queue up in front of check-in at around 1:15. And then we all heard every driver's worst nightmare.
We only have 3 forklifts. We had a bunch of call-offs and our other 3 forklifts are down. It's going to be a long night, fellas.
This may sound stupid to anyone who has never driven a truck before, but this meant that I would be sitting there twiddling my thumbs while they offloaded trucks and counted product in groups. Yup, that's right. They unload and then tally everything up. The big plan by some corporate clown was to unload trucks in batches of 5, then tally the product up for each truck, and issue the bills and lump of fees in batches of 5. Then move those 5 trucks back to the staging area to sort out the paperwork. This was fine and all, except I and the first 4 other trucks had full truckloads, which meant one long night at a DC that didn't allow overnight parking. So, at 5:10 p.m., on the nose, I bumped the dog and I waited. It took 2 hours for them to unload the truck, then another 2 to count through everything. Once it was all said and done, bills in hand, it was nearly 11 at night. Now I know what you're probably going to say. Why didn't I find a place that was closer? Why didn't dispatch find me another truck stop? Well, the load I was trying to set myself up for in Joplin was my load home. I get screwed around enough when it comes to home time, and I had enough. I wasn't missing out on my home time because some idiots broke their forklifts and a few more decided to call off work that day. So, I prepared to arrive at 3 a.m. in Joplin. Now, the route I was going to have to take to get to 44 was pretty straightforward. Not too many bands, and I would only pass through 2 towns. This meant I could make some good time, and being this late, I would have the road to myself. I guided my rig out of the DC and made my way towards Joplin, fueled by ribbits, menthol cigarettes, and a desire to get the heck home. About an hour into the trip, I started to get pretty tired. I was one of the few companies left running paper logs, so I could pencil whip them to look legal once I got to Joplin and slept a bit. This is where I should have listened to my instructor. After lighting up another smoke, I saw something. It was all black, running on all fours, and it darted across the road. I was on the outskirts of the first town. I slammed on my brakes and looked around from inside the truck. Nothing but total blackness, and the road revealing itself steadily before my headlights. It scared the heck out of me, but looking at where I was, I just had 3 hours left to go. I put the truck back into gear and started down the road. It seemed like the further I went, the more tired I became. Passing into the town, with its shops closed up and the dim hue of the streetlights, there was a suspicious level of calm about the place. For some reason, nothing really felt right, but I knew if I kept pushing, I would hit Joplin. On the south side of town was a small gravel lot. I wish I had listened to reason. I stopped the truck. On my right was the gravel lot. In front of me was a 3-hour-long stretch to Joplin. I negotiated that it would only be a $10 parking ticket, and it would only cost me half of 1 day of my home time. The lot seemed to beckon me. Usually they're full of dump trucks and construction equipment, but for some reason, this one was open. What overrode reason was my anger from always having to shorten my time home to rescue a load or a driver or to do some dumb BS for my incompetent boss. God, I wish I had listened to reason. With my second wind giving me a false sense of determination, I put the truck in gear and took off down the road. This stretch between this first town and the second, it's straight and level. Somehow the geniuses in Missouri managed to make a nearly level road, going completely straight in a state full of hills and valleys. It was a dream come true because I could push the speed a little and maybe cut off a few minutes. Fatigue set in harder once the town was a blur in my side mirror. The world around me seemed to grow darker and darker with each mile. I stepped the speed up to 60. 5 over isn't going to get a cop's attention. From what I could tell, I was halfway between towns when I saw the black dog again. This time, it wasn't running across the road. Off in the distance, silhouetted by moonlight, I could see a figure in the road. It was sitting dead center of it. I dropped my speed down as I approached. The initial touch of light reflected red in the eyes of whatever this was. I stopped just short, not revealing what this thing was. I felt cold, and like I wanted to throw up. Whatever this thing was, now just 100 feet in front of me, it didn't care that a big truck with bright lights came roaring towards it. I played my air horn, hoping to scare it off. It didn't budge. Succumbing to my own stupidity once again, I crept forward in my truck. The light began to reveal the body of this thing, gradually and slowly as I crept forward before finally revealing a shaggy black dog. His tail wasn't wagging, no tongue excitedly dangling out of his mouth, just an intense stare, not at the headlights, not at the truck, but at me. I began to feel ice water flowing through my veins. I stopped the truck and stared back at it. What else was I supposed to do? It clearly wasn't afraid. What occurred to me then was the world around me was pitch black. Suddenly, the motor of the truck cut off. The black dog got up and began walking towards me. What happened next, I can't really explain. The headlights began to, die. Each step it took towards the truck, the lights began to flicker and recede. Like this dog was bending the light down. The dog stopped just in front of the hood, still in plain sight. The lights on the truck died completely. I struggled to restart the engine, but nothing would take. I realized then that I was submerged completely in the suffocating darkness that was all around me. I felt the truck shake and heard a loud thump on the hood. I could hear it breathing in front of me, separated only by glass with two intense and all-seeing red eyes. They burned inside the skull of this animal. I felt a pull from within my chest as those eyes became locked onto mine. The kind of pull that feels like your soul is being ripped from you. The last thing I remember is seeing a blinding white light, followed by red and then blue. A loud pounding on my door woke me from my stupor. It was a state patrolman. We were sitting there in the roadway. To my right was an empty gravel lot. I pulled my air brakes and stepped out of the truck looking like I had seen a ghost. He stopped because he saw me stopped and wanted to see if I was okay. I was pretty much ordered to park in the gravel lot and get some sleep. The part that kept me up a bit longer that night was the state policeman was a K9 unit. Looking directly at me from an open window in the back seat of his cruiser was a large black dog. It wasn't panting, wagging its tail, or even drooling. It just sat there and stared at me, almost as if it was issuing me a dare to go further, a dare to not get some rest, a dare to continue down that dark road once the patrolman had moved on.